It was a cold November evening in the quiet town of Nairn, Scotland. A man named Alistair Wilson was about to answer a knock at his door, an ordinary action that, in an instant, would transform into something chilling, something unexplainable, something that would leave behind a mystery that, to this day, remains unsolved. This is Samuel Podcast, and today, we unravel the enigma that is the murder of Alistair Wilson, a case of a man whose past holds no clear motive, a weapon that belongs in a collector's hands rather than a killer's, and a blue envelope that might just be the key to unlocking everything. Part 1, The Night of the Murder. November 28, 2004. The streets of Nairn were empty, the air crisp, the sky swallowing the last hints of daylight. Inside a modest home on Crescent Road, Alistair Wilson, a 30-year-old bank manager, was enjoying a quiet evening with his wife and their 2 young children. It was supposed to be an ordinary night, until a knock on the door shattered that illusion. Veronica Wilson, Alistair's wife, answered the door. Standing there was a man, ordinary, forgettable even. He wasn't masked, he wasn't armed, at least not visibly. He uttered a few simple words, "Is Alistair Wilson home?" Veronica turned to call her husband. Moments later, Alistair stood at the door, facing the stranger. The man handed him something, a blue envelope with a single word written on it, Paul. Then, without another word, the visitor turned and walked away. Alistair stared at the envelope. Confusion. Maybe concern. He stepped back inside, but before he could make sense of it, he turned back toward the door, stepped outside, perhaps to call after the man, perhaps to demand an explanation. But that was when the shots rang out. 3 bullets. 1. 2. 3. Alistair collapsed, blood pooling at his doorstep. Veronica ran to him, screaming. Their children were inside. The street outside. Silent. The killer. Gone. Part 2, The police investigation begins. From the moment police arrived, they knew this wasn't an ordinary crime. Nairn was not a town known for violence, let alone execution-style murders. Officers searched for witnesses, examined the crime scene, and combed through every possible lead. But what they found only deepened the mystery. The murder weapon, a Henel Soul pocket pistol, was discovered days later in a drain near the Wilsons' home. An unusual gun, an antique, difficult to trace. Where did it come from? Who had access to it? And why use such a rare weapon for a crime like this? Then there was the envelope. The blue envelope marked Paul. The police scoured Alistair Wilson's personal and professional life, looking for any connection to someone named Paul. But no such person stood out. Was the name meant as a clue? Or was it a red herring? Detectives considered multiple theories, each with its own troubling implications. Part 3, Theories and Suspects. The first avenue of investigation led to Alistair's workplace. As a bank manager, he had access to financial information, loans, and decisions that could have impacted people's lives in significant ways. Could he have made an enemy there? A denied loan? A financial dispute? The bank records were scrutinized, but nothing obvious pointed to a motive for murder. Then there was the theory of mistaken identity. A chilling possibility, but one that detectives had to consider. What if the gunman had meant to kill someone else? Someone with a similar name or appearance? But that theory, too, seemed to fall apart. The killer had asked for Alistair Wilson by name. He had waited. This was intentional. Police also investigated whether the murder was personal, an act of revenge or an old grudge coming back to haunt Alistair. They interviewed former colleagues, old acquaintances, and even distant family members. No history of conflicts, no debts, no affairs. Alistair Wilson, by all accounts, was an upstanding man. Part 4, The Mysterious Visitor. Then there was the question of the shooter. Who was he? Veronica Wilson's description was vague, an average-looking man in dark clothing, no defining features. The CCTV cameras in the area offered no useful footage. No one else in the neighborhood reported seeing anything unusual. It was as if the man had materialized out of the night, committed the crime, and vanished. A door-to-door investigation was conducted, but no one knew of a "Paul" that fit the context. The suspect had covered his tracks too well. Part 5, A Case Growing Cold. As days turned into weeks, then months, then years, the case began to grow cold. Theories emerged, ranging from a targeted assassination to an elaborate scheme gone wrong. Investigators revisited the evidence time and time again. But each new lead led to the same dead end. Despite multiple appeals to the public, no credible witnesses stepped forward. No new suspects emerged. And the murder of Alistair Wilson faded into the annals of Scotland's most perplexing unsolved crimes. Part 6, Final Thoughts. Alistair Wilson's story is one of silence. The silence of an empty street. The silence of an unanswered question. The silence of a killer who has never been found. We are left with fragments, a blue envelope, an antique gun, a name without a face. And we are left with a question that lingers in the cold air of that November night: why? And now, I turn to you, my listeners. If you had to choose just one clue to unlock this case, just one piece of evidence that holds the key, what would it be? Would you focus on the gun? The envelope? The man at the door? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and let's unravel this mystery together. This has been Samuel Podcast. Until next time, stay curious. Stay vigilant. And most of all, stay listening.